First thing, what name do I get to list you on the list of people who are doing this? I have Andrea, is it Curtin or Crichton?
Citrin,
Citrin.
Citrin. There's a quartz crystal that if you add an E at the end, it's like that. I'm sure it was something different when the family came over.
Where did they come over from?
I think that was my grandpa was probably like Yugoslavia, Austria area. That was the might have been Zitron or something like that.
Okay, good. Let's get started. Welcome to another episode of Fair Folk at Work. My guest today, I think we share two things in common. We both did fair, and we
Yes.
both have worked at government in thinking that that's a good thing to do for society. We'll get into that perhaps later. But first of all, welcome, Andrea.
Hi.
I'm going to start with the traditional question that all Fair Folk at Work interviews start, which is, who was the person to say, there's this thing called fair and you really ought to do it?
I think the two people who got me involved, I think I always wanted to do it, but then my friend Eden Brandy was working and another friend was dating this person, Andy Scales. So between Eden being there and then Andy convincing, but he didn't really have to work very hard with me, us to work, those were the two people who got me into fair.
And what did you work at
What
fair when you got there for the first time?
I was in St. Helena's. Andy was and I played brother and sister. And I just participated in all the pageants and I did a lot of street acting.
You were a happy peasant?
I was a happy peasant until I needed to do something less stressful so I had time to eat and see shows, I think.
What did you like about being a happy peasant?
I like the interaction with the cast and with the audience and some of the silly skits we did. We had a group of peasants that would start at the beginning of the Queen's procession and then run at top speed to each stop to, God save the Queen, huzzah. And then we'd run to the next stop and we got a group of probably 20 to 30 peasants at one time running through fair, trying not to knock over customers. And then also I did some Adam Long was involved in it at the time and he got us involved in some really funny skits that were quite fun to participate in and irritated court a lot. That was also fun. He did one where we went into court. He just said something like we can take the salamanders and we can take the lizards, but we can't take the newts. No newts, no newts, no newts. And we all chanted and got chased off by I think Darby yelled at us and we ran at tops. There was a lot of running at top speed through a fair with large groups of peasants apparently. We just did stupid things that really amused us and then hopefully amused other people as well.
Who else do you remember as sort of cluing you into the gestalt of peasantry?
Cluing me in. I worked with a lot of people that moved on to different things and we all just got silly ideas and then enacted them. People who led St. Helena's at the time, I think that were the guild masters. Steve Briand did it, and Mark Wallace was in charge. And I think they just wanted us to engage with people a lot. And I found, I would interact if I was by myself. I really enjoyed interactions with the customers. If I heard them having a conversation, I'd interrupt and say something. If little kids were crying, I'd find a little toy to give them. People came back and said they remembered me the next year because I had interacted with them. There were so many people that I was involved in with St. Helena's that it's really hard to remember Adam because he was so involved in everything. I remember you because you were so involved. And then we used to go sit and watch plays sometimes and do the interaction with the different actors. And it was just a lot of fun. So I don't remember everything.
Before you came to fair, did you have a theatrical background at all?
I did do some school plays, and I would say I'm quite the extrovert, and I will just talk to people randomly because I can't help myself. But I wasn't a big theater person. I took drama classes, I guess, but I wasn't in play production.
When you came up to somebody one on one, what was your take?
What
Who
was
you
my
were
take?
and yeah, who were you? Why were you there? And what did you want them to get out of that interaction?
Andy and me were just we were I that was my brother. I was just a little peasant lady who liked chatting people up. I mean, I don't even remember if I had anything specific. It was like I was Andy's sister and we were peasants. I don't think we got a huge background other than that, like what our names were. And when I would interact with people, I mean, just kind of like I like to see if I could make them laugh or smile or feel paid attention to. They're
Did
just
you
kind of
have a
fun to
prop or anything?
I think I wore a lot of things on my costume and kept adding more things to my belt, my costume, and huge mug. Once I got into serving beverage, I had bells. I would pretend to sneak up behind people wearing bells, which so obviously you can't sneak up on anybody when they can hear you. I did that with person Rob Rothrock, who was in a horse tournament, and we would follow him around and I would pretend to be sneaking while making these really loud noises. I just was just silly and trying to entertain people and make myself giggle. I had fun when I did it.
When you first went off to fair,
Hmm.
what did mom and dad think of that?
Um, I don't know what my dad thought, but mom had said I started when I was 17, and she had said during workshops, I had to come home for some reason. I couldn't sleep over, but once fair started, I could spend the night. And Andy was came and would get me. He was kind enough, and she actually let him stay over. She trusted him. She treated him like he was her son. He drove me back and forth my first year. And so she was fine. I don't know. She just, I guess, wanted to test the waters first with me just going to workshops. I don't know. I was sort of that early Gen X. She was like, go do whatever you want to do and just make sure
Hmm.
you're up for school on Monday and make sure your homework gets done. And if you're taking care of everything, then I'm fine with it.
Where did you live?
Where did I live? I lived in Sherman Oaks. I mean, I think I got a lot of independence. As long as you're taking care of what I need you to take care of, what, I've said is important, then go
Did
have
she
fun.
have career goals for you in mind, you think, when you were 17 that were either enhanced or hindered by the fair?
No, she just wanted to make sure I passed my classes because school was very important.
What was your
I mean, before,
major?
oh, it's always been English or communications. I used to go to science fiction conventions before the fair started, and she let me do that too.
Thinking about the soft skills you learned at fair and your subsequent life, how did fair influence that aspect of you?
I think overall it just gave me more confidence in myself and communicating, speaking to people and communicating to people. It just made me feel better. People accepted me, and so I could accept myself more easily. That's where it's been really helpful. To me, fair just opened me up and made it easier for me to feel safe within myself, expressing myself. Yeah, I just realized something. I think once I moved I went to St. Helena's and I was in Merry Pranksters and then I went over to Beverage. And one of the things I learned from watching some of the really good servers was that people just want to be acknowledged because some of the guys would say, "Oh, women, well, you just get tips because of boobs." And I was like, "No, she gets way more tips than me and she's not busty." I'm like, huh, now I gotta watch her and see what she does. Because I'm going really fast. Why am I not making the same amount of tips? And Karan, what she had a gig. So if they tipped her, she did this, she would kick a bell way up there. So I'm like, I can't do that. My legs don't go that high. I've got to, and so I use the bells around my waist to ring the bell. People really like that. But I also slow down a hair because I noticed that people wanted to be acknowledged. And if you're going too fast, you can't just say, I'll be right with you or I see you. And so I think that fair also helped me realize that people just want to be acknowledged. Even if you can't help them in the moment, they want to know you've heard them or seen them.
Was there a sort of unique way of acknowledging patrons that you developed over time as a pattern
Well,
kind of thing?
when I was serving beverage, it was, I mean, you look at them and say, I'll be right with you. Or, oh, I know the line is long. We'll get to you in just a minute. And making sure also, if it was really hot, that people weren't passing out, waiting for their beverage and getting help if that was necessary. But it was basically just like looking in the eye instead of just going so fast that you can't look at them. It was just like slowing down just a tenth of a second, just really not even that much, just to look at people so that they felt seen.
Did you often take like then an extra beat and say nice hat or nice garland?
I did that a lot when I was walking through the streets. I would find something about a person that I liked and mention it really quickly. Or if somebody, like they had their baby crying, I would try to help make the baby not focus on what made them sad for half a second or compliment somebody on something. I used to tell little, if they were in a stroller, it was like, oh, look, it's a queen's chair. Or, oh, are you the queen? That's what we did when we were peasants a lot. Oh, you must be the queen. Oh, all the bowing, reverencing, and everything. I still want to do things like that, but I have to, it's like I'm not wearing my costume. So people are just going to think I'm a crazy old lady. I wear my Buffy hat and I wear pale moon jewelry so that if people will, even at the Texas fairs, because there's a couple of people that have been in California fairs, so they'll recognize me. We had, I think it was Fellowship Foundry. When we got married, we got these Fellowship Foundry glasses and they had broken quite a while ago. And finally we remembered to bring them to get, because they'll fix them for free. You just pay for the shipping. And the lady saw my Pale Moon's jewelry and she said, that's OG. That's honey, you're from OG Fair. Did you do Agora? It's like, and this is in Texas, so it's like, yes. It was very exciting. It's really fun. So that, I mean, I wear it then. I just don't feel like putting on a bodice anymore. I'd wear a costume if I felt like it just takes so long to get dressed. I'm like, I don't know. I can't do it. I had to remember to tie my boots before I put on my bodice. And then you had the bodice before there's like bloomers and a couple of skirts. And then I had bald mountain boots and I think they only had 3 buttons. So they shouldn't have been that hard, but I had to put those on first because you couldn't bend over once you put the bodice on. Then you had to put the bodice on. Then you had to put everything else on. Then you had to adjust your body in the bodice and the skirt and tuck the skirts up. And it was at least 30 minutes. And I usually take 5 minutes to get dressed. So the boots were nice and comfortable, supported my ankles and my feet. The boots last, I mean, I still have them. I'm not going to get rid. I mean, they're made for my feet. So
Right. So I'm going to shift gears and perhaps begin to talk about what I talked about in the introduction,
okay.
which your career after fair writing
Yeah.
with is it the Texas
Edit.
Human?
I edit for Health and Human Services. I edit our online documents for Health and Human Services Commission for the state of Texas, Texas Health and Human Services Commission. And so the documents go online. We try to, because it's such a huge agency with so many different divisions, we just try to keep everything looking the same and easy, plain language so that people can read it when they're busy. Or it's supposed to be like at an eighth grade education, but even if you have a PhD, if you're really busy, you just need it quick and simple. So we try to edit for grammar and plain language.
Do you think lessons you learned in communicating with people at fair in Elizabethan has any applicability to communicating to people in bureaucrat?
When I have to work with programs and talk to them about why we're doing things a certain way, it helps me do the project management part and the dealing with the people part. But definitely, because there's a big component that's dealing with people. That it
What
does help with that.
communication skills that you used at fair have you used at the workplace?
Well, it's just, more probably that everybody wants to be acknowledged and heard. And so saying, okay, I get what you're saying, but this is why we're doing it this way. I know that it's really important for you to use this and your client base uses this, but I think it's just acknowledging that they have a valid point of view but this is where the agency is going. So, but they also more importantly want to know you've heard what they've had to say at least. At least you were willing to have a discussion with them. Yeah, I think it just gives you more people skills, hopefully. I mean, especially if you were dealing with the public, which I mean, not everybody did, I guess, but a lot of us did. And so if you're having to deal with the public, you learn how to deal with the public or you're going to have a really bad time at fair.
Let me give you a counterfactual. If there's a world that the fair did not exist, how do you think your life would have evolved?
I don't know. It's been a great family to find, and it was a great tribe to find. I had other friends, and I still have other friends, but I felt I don't know, it really gave me a sense of belonging and acceptance. So I would have had to have found that somewhere else, and I don't know if I would have. There was a lot of things I thought people didn't like about me that when I went to fair, nobody was bothered by any aspect of my personality at all. So I just realized that sometimes society is puts these boundaries on people and they're not necessarily they're just kind of like one group's rule. They're not really how you have to be. So it just helped me understand myself a little bit better. Helped me be more accepting of myself. I probably would have kept doing science fiction conventions if fair hadn't come along. I mean, I would have just stayed with that group of people that I hung out with.
You kind of
I mean, I,
learned that sometimes it can be somebody else's problem, their reaction to you kind of thing, or sometimes
yeah,
society is to blame.
yeah. I mean, and sometimes the rules that are put on people and women didn't really have to be that way at the fair. But I did have a lot of good friends at science fiction conventions, so I probably would have just ended up continuing to hang out with them.
Have you written or published anything?
No, my brother's the writer. I mean, I used to think I was a writer, but I like editing more. I think I like telling people what to do. Can't say that. I mean, and the reason we have rules with the state of Texas is because it's so large. The agency I work for is so large that it would just be we want things to look like we're the same company all the way through. So you
Right.
have kind of a brand guide. And then also it's easier, like if you have only two editors and 500 forms and handbooks, if everybody does something different, it's really hard to edit all of that. So there's guidelines so that everybody can follow the same rule. But that's why I mean, other than that, like we use AP style. Some of the stuff is good and some of it I don't like, but that's what we follow. I have to look things up grammar wise, even though I did really well in English. I still like, what's that? What does that mean? What's the rule? Like, don't make up your own stuff. We're a large agency. If you have your own tiny agency, you do what you want. We all have to look like we work for the same company because we work for the same company. My name sign at work said cat herder, giving each other unofficial titles. And that was my unofficial title.
Where once again the tact you learned at fair came in handy.
I sometimes was that I did head serving sometimes at nail stands, and that was what we called ourselves too. Basically we were just, there's so much control you can do over people who are, working there at the Renaissance Fair. So we were cat herders. Okay, you're come here, you're scheduled at this time, and try to follow by these guidelines. You do the best you can, but cat herders fair. It just got me better at relationships with people, so I'm better at
How did
relationships
you
with people.
feel about uncovered shoulders?
Well, you weren't supposed to have uncovered shoulders, so I tried to cover them, but every once in a while, that elastic just did not work. It would slip down. We'd always make comments about people, loose women or whatever, when they had uncovered shoulders, make some kind of comment. I wasn't a fan if someone did it on purpose when they worked there because I was really into like looking the part, but it happened. I mean, I wasn't in charge. It was like, okay, well, you're going to go get your costume approved. If you want to wear it like that, Don't do it when you're getting your costume approved. And then don't let the costume goddess see you because depending on who it was, they will say something.
At that time, Chris Zeta was the head of costumes, and she let me do my insulin shots because I'm a diabetic. So I heard a lot of her side of the grumbling.
Yes. Yeah, it was her. I remember her and I remember Vicky. And Chris didn't really know me. So if I could hide, if I was doing something wrong, then if she wouldn't really notice me necessarily, but Vicky knew me, so I couldn't get away with anything.
Did you
Like if
have
she's
a favorite button that was perhaps not as appropriate at noon show as perhaps after 6 o'clock? A button for your costume.
Yeah, I didn't wear the actual pins on my costume. I think I had a couple after hours. One was like I do whatever the little voices tell me to do. Oh, I really liked What Part of No Don't You Understand? That was a favorite. But those were usually after hours. All my stuff at fair was fair favors and things like that. Usually, I'm sure some of them were not, totally appropriate, but I
Close enough?
rarely got, yeah, close enough. I rarely got called out on things. I was like, nothing bad. I tried to kind of like slide under the radar if I was gonna do something not period.
Okay, let's try a role play now. In honor of Thanksgiving, say you're at the family table,
Oh dear.
and let us say you have a niece, and her name is Zoe, and say
Oh,
Zoe is 14, and Zoe pipes up, I'm going to do fair next year. And then there's a little pause in the conversation, and everyone looks at Zoe. And then Zoe says, look at Aunt Andrea and all the fun she had at fair. And then your sister and brother in law, their eyes turn to you and they say, yes, tell us why little Zoe should go to fair next spring. And you say,
um, I'd be a little worried about Zoe, but I would knowing fair, but I would say, why should Zoe work fair? I think it's going to help her meet a diverse group of people and expand her horizons as far as what kind of people are in the world. It would just help her be more accepting and tolerant of a wide variety of people. And I would certainly, if somebody's 15, though, want her to probably have a responsible adult that is someone she can touch base with when she's at the fair. I think it just opened me up to more people, kind of expands your horizons, and hopefully it's a it for me it was a really safe place to be.
I am really just sort of jumping around here now. But my next question is, if you were to write a book, what is your unwritten novel about?
I don't know. I have no idea. I don't think I would have time to write a novel because I have so many things I'm interested in and I don't have time for enough of them. The lady who's too busy and wants to do everything. That's what my novel would be about. Because I told you I was taking classes on herbalism. Luckily, one of them will be done at the end of the year. And then I'm working full time. Is disappointed that she has a limited amount of time.
Okay, what if it were a short story?
I don't know. Because I just get so it would be like taking a walk in my green belt and what do I see? And what plants and animals can I identify? I just get thrilled at like when I see new plants and stuff. And so I don't know that walking in the fog and meeting new plants. There used to be a book I liked when I was little called Fog Magic. So I'd have to maybe something with fog and plants. Okay,
What
sorry.
about herbs or herbalism attracts you?
It used to be that I used them very much like medicine, and my family had had some bad experiences taking being over medicated, and so I liked taking finding an herb that I could use instead. And now I also like I kind of use them as medicine, but I use them a lot more just as like tonics. And I like knowing what plants in my area what they can do. What are they nutritious? Are they medicinal? Are they just good for the ground and helping other plants grow? And they're good for pollinators. So I like knowing the uses of plants around me. And I like regional plants. So I like learning about the plants of the area and using that as much as possible. Although there are plants that are not regional that I like using as medicine. And
So you
so
like the sort of puzzle solving aspects of,
that plants can have a lot of constituents in it that can be really beneficial for health, whether it's for your physical body or for the environment. You know, sometimes it's just like certain plants you can't ingest, but they're really good for conditioning the soil, or they're really good for butterflies. But I really like using gentle medicine if possible, because there's times when you have to use like medicine. And I like not have, I like doing that as little as possible. So I'm kind of an under medicator. And herbs have helped me a lot.
one of the themes through these interviews has been the muscle memory of wet straw early in the morning. That is to say, the physical environment of fair impressed itself on a lot of people in a lot of different ways that you don't off did not often get in an urban environment. Did
Hmm.
you find that true for you?
Oh, I mean, muscle memory of things. When you smell certain things, when you smell hay, it definitely reminds me of fair and cinnamon. Sometimes, like if you like the cinnamon buns, that was a very distinct smell in the morning, like before fair started. It was just like this great way to wake up. Speaking of muscle memory, when I danced with the Merry Pranksters, there was this dance Stingo. I still remember how to do it. Once the music starts, my body just knows what it's doing. So that those kind of things, like I hear certain songs and I know I'm like all of a sudden trying to do the dance again, or I hay and cinnamon and Stingo. There was this one section that was supposed to be like an 8 beat, but it was really only 7 or 7.5. So you got to do this quick turn. I just loved it. I loved that dance. It was really fun. But I actually enjoyed dancing. That's why I switched from St. Helena's to the Merry Pranksters too. So I really, really like dancing.
Did you respond to the leadership skills of those in the Merry Pranksters?
Did I respond to their leadership? Yeah, I generally. I mean, I learned dances from them, did follow their instructions. I don't think they were like, especially when I started really hardcore about anything in particular. I mean, they were strong women too.
What were their names?
Patty Blanco ran it, and Karen Sands, Caitlin Phillips. There were two Janets. But I think the women were just in general really strong, and that didn't bother me. I really like that. And I know KZ Karen, well, because she's very straightforward, and I'm like, I appreciate that because then I know where I stand with her. There's no guessing. It's just like she tells me what she needs or what she wants, and that's how all the women in that, and the guys just, I don't know. I don't think the guys really did a lot of the instructions. They were there to dance. But the women just told you what they needed and there was no guessing. And I like that. In Texas, I don't always understand what people are trying to say to me because they do that bless your heart kind of thing and they don't really mean bless your heart. I'm like, you just need to say what you need to say. And that's how the pranksters were. That's how a lot of people at Fair were. I mean, they
Did,
were nice, they were kind, but they were straightforward.
as far as you could tell, did Patty have sort of a philosophy of dance that she wanted to be conveyed?
I think that I have a vague memory of her having studied certain things and trying to teach in that method. I don't remember the specifics. I know that, like, I saw other people doing country dance in other areas, not at the Renaissance Fair, and it was much slower. I think she sped things up a little bit, made it more interesting to watch and also more fun to do. But I think that both her and I know she had split with, it was like there were two dance groups at the time and there was some sort of thing. I don't know. I wasn't involved in much of the conflict, but I think she was mostly the conflict. But she was a great teacher when I first started. And so were all the women. And I think their philosophy was just follow these old historical guidelines and then make it fun and have big twirly skirts. And then the other guys were just they were definitely beloved family members. And I do remember, like, she would only let certain people do Morse dancing, and she wouldn't let anybody that was newer do Morse dancing. And we were having rehearsal at her house and she was sick one time. And I think that Caitlin and one of the Janets took over. I mean, it was probably all of them, but they were like, nope, you're learning Morse dancing. Like, no, Patty doesn't want, nope, we'll get you up on an easy one. And they had me practice the dances. And they're like, we're the ones doing the rehearsal today, so we get to say what goes on. Like, okay. She just was never letting me. That was kind of fun. I mean, it wasn't fun that she was sick, but it was nice to learn some of those dances. I have more admiration for it too. I was always afraid like I'd get hit with the stick in my fingers or that I would hit somebody else. And both of those things always worried me. And then the females broke off and to their own Morse dancing group. And I think they call themselves Red Tail. I don't want to mess that up, but because they just felt like they weren't getting enough time or something. I don't even remember the reason for that either, but they were really fun to watch. Brunos were really fun to watch. I just liked participating in the dancing. That was a great group of people, I thought. And I liked when we all started, people just started hanging out with the other groups instead of like, oh, well, we know we're in separate dance troops, so we can't hang out. And some people were like, no, you guys can be mad at whoever you want to be mad at. We're hanging out.
Did you ever do the was the Bones dance?
No, I never did that, but I did always look forward to seeing them. And they used to come through the ale stands a lot. That was, yeah, I really look forward to seeing it. And if I've seen them doing it at other little fairs too, and I still get excited.
So do I.
I think it was supposed to be a reminder that, death is always near.
But
But
what I liked about it, yeah, the musicians who are normally in the background and
uh-huh.
they're playing over in the corner, and this was their
Hmm.
time to sort of come forward, and you saw aspects of their personalities that you didn't expect to see normally. And
Yeah,
that
when you wear a mask, you can act differently. When you cover your face or something and you have permission to be more than you would normally be if your face is shown and you're a little shy or something.
I've done a lot of interviews with the Commedia people,
Uh-huh.
and they talk about that a lot, about the freedom to be behind the mask. You really can be somebody else without any criticism being of yourself, kind of thing.
Right. I kind of felt like that when I would wear a costume. People would like ask me to do an accent out in real life, and I'm like, I can't do an accent. I have to have my costume on. I can't do any of it unless I have my costume on. I have to have my costume on. Then I might not be able to get out of the accent. But it's kind of like not like an official mask, but that was like my mask was
Right.
putting on the costume. Yeah.
When you were kind enough to say yes to do this interview, was there any story you said to yourself, I've got to be sure to mention fill in the blank? So take this time to fill in the blank on a memory or a person. Another way to phrase it is the second I stop recording it, you're going to think of something and go, shucks, I should have mentioned that. So this
Yeah.
is your
Well,
shuck. I should have mentioned that.
I had so many wonderful experiences. Another fair person, Paula Chambers, has reconnected a bunch of us with an old English teacher, and she says, "Tell us what you remember about her." And I don't necessarily remember specific stories. I
Mhm.
just remember that I felt really good when I went in her classroom. So, what I remember most about Fair is that I felt really good when I was there and I loved being there. And I just like loved the people. I just got such a sense of belonging and acceptance when I was there. I mean, and there's certainly some specifics I remember, like I told you about, Adam and the newts and running through fair, and my friend Karan teaching me how to be a better ale server. And there were a few other people that probably taught me how to be a better ale server too. But I really mostly remember that I just felt great. I mean, I just felt warm and loved and accepted and like I was part of a family when I went there. So it was more of a feeling than one specific thing.
Thank you, Andrea. That was a great interview. That brings to a conclusion this interview with Andrea Citrin, recorded November 2023. If you have questions or comments you would like for me to pass along to Andrea, you may contact me at djng@earthlink.net. Questions or comments about the podcast itself can also be directed to me at djng@earthlink.net. If you or anyone you know would like to be a guest on Fair Folk at Work, well, you can contact me at djng@earthlink.net. That's it for this time. Thanks for listening. Bye bye.